so I'll start by giving you what I know and sort of the sequence of events. And I was on the road right before we went on the road for not the Final Four, but recruiting. So I was on the road for the Final Four, came back about to go recruiting, and Ahmad stopped by the office and shared with me his. We were kind of doing our end of the year review, and he just said he decided he's going to transfer. And his reason was to be closer to home. His grandmother was sick, and he wanted to be closer to home. So I told him, I said, if that's really the case, then we support you on that. And then I hit the road recruiting, so there wasn't much discussion after that.
So this seemed to catch you by surprise then?
Some things catch you by surprise and some things don't. I would say that if I had to put a probability on this happening, given how he was playing toward the end of the year, I would have said 60-40 he would stay. If somebody had asked me if you think Ahmad was transferring, I probably would have said 60-40 or 70-30 because it was his senior year. But then if you throw in the sick grandma, then that sort of takes it almost 60-40 the other way.
How hard is that, a guy that you went out to get to bring so far away from home to come here, and then you say last year he's got to bail?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I mean, the one thing we say about our team and teams here at Oregon State, we don't have the opportunity to stockpile talent. So when we do our recruiting, it's for guys who are playing. And as we're trying to sort of build up a bench, when you lose a guy, whether it's to injury like we did with Daniel Gomez and Angus Brandt this year, or early departure because of the draft with Jared and possibly Eric, which fortunately we don't have to deal with, or with a guy who transfers, it's going to be a tough blow. But fortunately for us, we started building that bench, and we've got a couple of guys, Langston Morris Walker and Victor Robbins, who have talked to the barometer and said that they're ready to step up right away.
Have you talked to those guys about that?
Yeah, I not about that specifically. We've sort of tried to rally ourselves and say, Ahmad did a lot for this program the 3 years he was here. Now we have to take it the rest of the way.
Craig, Victor said that he felt the team would be better with Ahmad. Do you agree with that?
What I like about Victor, he's really confident, and I think had he not had the setback he had in the year, he probably would have played a lot more, and people would have seen that. Now, whether or not we're going to be better, that remains to be seen. Ahmad was a big part of our team. But I understand what Victor's saying. He commented on Ahmad's size. He commented on his own ability to make up for that. I understand that. I'm not ready to say we're going to be better without him. Although what we can do in a situation like this is that we can better ourselves with the opening that we have now.
Craig, any update on Angus? Do you expect him to be with the Beavers next season?
Absolutely. So Angus will have his year back. That's not what we're worried about. We want to make sure that he's completely healthy. So he's taken it very slow, but he's been doing workouts with the guys. He looks good. He's in great physical shape. We just don't want to do something silly over the summer, which means nothing to us. So we won't know him we won't know his constraints or his limitations from a physical contact standpoint, because I'm not going to let him do anything physical until the fall.
But as far as NCAA-wise, he's good to go.
I think the final edict has to come down from the NCAA, but in his situation, I could almost say that there would be no reason for him not to. He got hurt in the third game, and he hasn't had a redshirt year, so he's still technically he's owed a redshirt year at least. So, we're excited about the fact that he and Daniel Gomez both will be back.
Are you going to try to fill Ahmad's scholarship immediately, or are you going to?
It's interesting, Kevin. We are always recruiting. So, you keep some 13 guys on the line because you might have an injury, you might have a transfer. So if we find the right guy, we'll try and fill that, either a junior college guy or a freshman to come in and replace him. I suspect we'll be able to find someone. What we found when we were out on the road and people heard about it, we had a lot of high school coaches, a lot of AAU coaches contact us after the period and say they had a guy that might be able to help us out. So I feel comfortable that we'll be able to at least fill that spot.
Would you be looking at a point guard specifically, or?
I would say a point guard probably, but if a great wing player or a great big man comes and he can help the program, I might evaluate that.
Craig, I know you'll address this way more as we get closer
Sure.
to the year. But with even losing a very good player with Starks, with the players you have coming back, with Angus coming back, Moreland coming back, veteran group, do you feel more pressure this year? I mean, because even in the NCAA tournament, there were coaches who got to the second round, they aren't even coming back. Is there more urgency for you?
No, what I've figured out about this business is that if you don't win enough, you get fired. If you win some but not a lot, you still get fired. And now it's been shown that you could win your league and win a couple of games in the tournament and get fired. So the pressure's there. What I feel good about the guys coming back. I feel good about that practice facility over there as a marketing tool. I feel good about our administration's commitment to me and my staff and my team and my family. I feel really good. And the other thing is, most of our fans out there, Beaver Nation, understand the reason why we had a bad year this year was injuries and early departure of Jarrett. Even with all of that, I like the way my team responded in adversity. So I'm worried about that stuff. I'm not worried about losing my job. I mean, you're going to get fired. If you're in this job, at some point you're going to get fired.
With David leaving, people want to read something into that. Was there any talk of him leaving before, or was it just a great opportunity for him?
No, that's a great opportunity for a guy who's done a good job, a very good job, as sort of being a West Coast recruiter. I mean, I think that UCLA's new coach needed a presence on the West Coast, and he looked throughout the conference to see who had a guy who was making stuff happen. I think it makes sense for Coach Grace.
Roberto expressed some concern when I was talking to him about Ahmad leaving, about he thinks you guys are going to get zoned a lot more because you don't really have any proven outside shooters besides Roberto. So what do you think defenses will do to you? We are going to see a variety of things at the beginning of the year. Unless we're able to show that we can make shots, we're going to get zoned a lot. But I will beg to differ with Roberto in the fact that we have him, we have Angus Brandt coming back, who was a 50% three-point shooter. We have Olaf Schaftenar, who is a very good shooter. Charlie Barton hit 4 threes or 5 threes against Utah, so his shooting will get better. And then people really don't know how good of a shooter Langston Morris Walker is because we didn't, quite frankly, need him to shoot, so he wasn't shooting that much last year. So that's just on the guys who are coming back. I think Beaver Nation will be a little bit surprised with how good of a shooter Hallis Cook is, who's coming in next year. So I think Roberto is being a little cagey, to be honest with you. I think he likes the fact that people play him zone, and you got a guy like Roberto Nelson. It doesn't matter if you play zone or man; he shoots from so far out. If you want to stop him, you got to have a guy out by him. So I beg to differ with him, but we'll see. How about defensively with Ahmad? Is there anything you guys are going to be able to do differently?
Well, I know Vic and Langston both told you that we would be a little bit better defensive team.
without Ahmad. I don't know if we're going to be better, but we'll be different. So we'll be a little bit bigger at the guard spot. So instead of, if you go with the guys we have right now and you assume that Charlie's starting with Roberto, you got two 6'4" guys there as opposed to a 5'8" guy and a 6'4" guy. I think you can do a couple of things differently. Now, you won't be able to pick up the ball like Ahmad would do full court and cover your man unless we can get Langston or Victor to do that, which I'm not so sure we can't get them to do. But I think we'll be different. I think we'll be longer. But we will miss Ahmad's shooting. I mean, he was almost 1,000-point scorer, and the leader in three-point shooting. So we're going to miss that.
Any more? How close are you? Do you feel to replacing David?
I'm taking my time with that, and I don't know if you guys know this, but it's sort of been me as a head coach and 3 assistants. We don't have a director of basketball operations. We don't have a video guy. I'm using this as an opportunity to sort of build out the entire staff. So, because I've been on the road, I haven't even had time. Today was the first day where I was calling some of the initial people that I had planned to call. So I suspect, since we don't need to be out on the road until July, I would take my time with that and make sure I got the right fit.
What would be your ideal guard rotation, or not names, but in terms of how minutes are distributed?
It would be nice. It would be nice if you have a 3-guard rotation for the meat of your season, and have a 4th guy who could sort of be a wing swinger, who could sub for a guard and also sub for a wing guy. That's ideal. The best of all possible worlds is you got 2 5-man teams that you can put out there and your pressure just stays up the whole time. So you have a 10-person rotation, but that's just not realistic in college because the game is so quick. But I would imagine that we're gonna have a 9-person rotation next year unless we have some kind of injury, unforeseen injury problem like we did this year. But from a guard standpoint, I think you want to have your 2 starting guards, a 3rd guard to rotate between the 3 of those, and then a 4th guy who can sort of be, if you get in foul trouble early, he can be a guard or be a forward, and that's sort of your 9th guy, your 9th man.
So I imagine we probably won't see many 3-guard lineups like you were doing at the end of the season.
Well, I won't say that necessarily either. I mean, I love the fact that we're going to be a lot longer, but at certain times with our 3-guard lineup, it could be a monster if all 3 of those guys are 6'4" or taller. So you might still see that. I mean, Hallis Cook is 6'3" and a half. And that's a formidable 3-guard lineup if you've got 3 fast guys who can all shoot who are 6'3" and a half or taller.
Craig, last summer when you were talking about recruiting, you mentioned the impact that Jared's drafting had. How people were like, "Oh, you got a guy going in the first round."
Yeah.
This year, coming off a tough year, Ahmad transferring, Dave leaving. What have you noticed on the recruiting trail?
Yeah, it's funny, Stephen. Our traction is just better because people have had more time to see us here. So not only now can we talk about Jared, but we can also talk about Eric, who is a potential draft pick who's coming back. We can talk about our practice facility. We can talk about how our guys came in as unknowns and are starting to leave as all Pac players like Roberto Nelson. But, unlike Roberto was the only guy who was sort of nationally well known. And I think what's happened is it's just taken some time for people to see what we do and how we do it. I think that our style of play is also a big positive that I'm seeing when I'm out there recruiting around the country. While we might be, what we're finding is we might be the 10th, 11th, or 12th pick for kids on the West Coast, because on the West Coast you're thinking Arizona, UCLA, USC, before you think of Oregon State. But now with the Pac-12 network, when we recruit nationwide and nationally and internationally,
people are, hey, I saw you play late at night. I love the way you guys play. Great offense, nice pace, changing defenses. There's some traction we're starting to get there. So I think the longer track record you have, the better it is from a recruiting standpoint.
Were you worried at all going into next season with Ahmad, with how he played at the end of the season? And
Well,
your relationship, having to manage his minutes, and I mean, were you worried about that maybe creating a problem?
No. You know what I was worried about was him getting his confidence back. I mean, you know, that was the thing that I was worried about, because he took such a dip at the end of the year. We were all trying to figure out what was going on. Now, if it turned out to be that he was worried about his grandma, that would probably have been something that we wouldn't have been able to do much about psychologically. So the biggest thing that I was worried about was that he wouldn't come out of that slump, and we wouldn't we wouldn't have been able to develop the younger guys. So, you know, that's one of those things that I think we'll have to see after next year, but maybe the problem fixed itself by him transferring. I don't know. You know, it was my gut feeling that he would have been fine next year, but there will be a lot of competition at that spot now, and would have been if he would have added another person for it. So that could have played into it too.
Did you know that Joe Burton was playing in the IBL?
I had heard that was a possibility, and you know, Joe loves playing, and I think he's going to do his best to keep playing. And if he's playing in the IBL, he's going to try and go overseas. I hope he keeps playing. I just wanted him to rest his body a little bit so that when the camps came around for the European tryouts, he would look good in those. Anything else?
Thanks.
How's that?
Thanks,
Good.
Greg.
Oh, my pleasure.